want you to put your hands together because this is our lovely hostess for today. Because of her, we are here to have tea. And she looks amazing. 3Gs are going to help me. And we're going to start the parade of hats with the lovely speaker. Come on. I want to see if you can model too. I know you look good. I know you can speak.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, honorable members, distinguished guests. Thank you for coming this afternoon. Today we gather for something that on the surface feels gentle, elegant, and even quaint. Afternoon tea. But for us in these Virgin Islands, a tea party is never just a tea party. Because when we raise these delicate cups, we also raise the weight of our history. Because the sweetness that now rests on our tongues once came from fields where our ancestors bent their backs, cutting cane under a sun that did not always shine with mercy. Because the very idea of tea and sugar carries echoes of an empire in which we were claimed, contained, and constrained. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, there is irony in this moment. A British overseas territory gathered in 2025, celebrating 75 years of restored democracy with tea, but perhaps that irony is exactly where the beauty lies. For 75 years ago, our foreparents marched, not for patronage, not for politeness, but for power. They marched from Road Town to the commissioner's office in 1949 with no fine china, no silver spoons, no table set for them, only voices, only vision, only the fierce conviction that they were worthy of determining their own destiny. Imagine that march. Footsteps forming a rhythm that said, we are here. A rhythm that said, we have a right. A rhythm that said, this land, these lives, this future belongs to us. And now 75 years later, we gather not at the gates of authority, but in a space of our choosing. A space shaped by our progress, our promise, and our possibility. We gather not as petitioners pleading for permission, but as participants shaping the present, not as subjects waiting for direction, but as stewards carrying forward the responsibility given to us by those who marched before us. For their footsteps brought us here, and our footsteps must carry us further. So yes, today we gather for tea, but this time we sweeten our own cups. Because the fruits of this country, or talent, or resilience, or economy, are fruits we planted, we watered, we harvested ourselves. And now as some look upon these islands and see the sweetness, they want it for themselves. But always remember, what is sweet to us now came from sweat, from sacrifice, from struggle, from a long unbroken line of Virgin Islands courage. So today as we sip, let us not forget we are still marching. But now the question becomes, what direction shall our footsteps take? For too long, our march has been reactive, marching against decisions, marching against perceptions, marching against the weight of a structure we did not design. But the next 75 years demand a shift, a march toward something, toward opportunity, toward economic expansion and diversification, toward governance that is strong, transparent, efficient, and confident, and toward a people fully prepared for whatever form of self-determination we choose. Not marching to resist, but marching to rise. So as we celebrate this 75th anniversary with its sweet ironies and historical echoes, let us also celebrate the audacity of our journey, that a people once denied a voice now debate their destiny, that a country once silenced now shapes its own narrative, that we, Virgin Islanders, descendants of those who cut the cane, now sit at the table where policies are made. And yes, sometimes we drink tea, served with a side of irony. So may today remind us that our history is not a chain holding us back, but a compass pointing us toward the future. And may this tea, simple, symbolic, and steeped in history, be a toast to the next march we must take, not against the past, but towards the future. So today, savor the sweetness, but let us not forget the sting beneath the sweet, the bittersweet truth that the journey is not yet complete. God bless you and enjoy the afternoon.
Permit me to express profound gratitude for this opportunity to address you, Madam Speaker, and your invited guests, as we celebrate the restoration of the Legislative Council, now termed House of Assembly, under the theme, Honoring the Past, Shaping the Future, the Virgin Islands' 75-year journey towards self-determination. I'm sure that being aware that I am a historian, it would not come as a surprise that I am incapable of speaking on any topic without addressing the historic context. In my defense, I'm always quick to declare that I live in the land of the dead, as I spend most of my time in the government's repository or strong room, reviewing records that were created by persons who are no longer alive. It is from this position that I wish to address you this afternoon, as we honor the past, identifying major events and activities that of necessity preceded the establishment of the Legislative Council. Activities which in themselves fulfilled the legal and administrative requirements. I will also attempt to identify key individuals who were a part of an innovation that changed the Virgin Islands forever. The story of the Great March of 1949 has been well told and commemorated in these Virgin Islands, and so too has been the restoration of the Legislative Council in 1950. But what happened between those two events? On the 30th of January, 1950, a public notice was issued in the Virgin Islands stating that the Secretary of State for the Colonies had agreed that a legislative council similar to those in the other presidencies should be established in the Virgin Islands. The first step identified was the appointment of a committee to recommend on the Constitution for the proposed Legislative Council and other questions connected therewith, such as the qualification of voters and candidates. On the 10th of February, 1950, a Constitutional Review Committee was appointed. H.R. Penn, Chairman. Henry O'Cricky, Secretary. Members included Stanford Connor from Rotown, Glanville Fonseca from Rotown, Herman A. Abbott from Rotown, Carlton de Castro from Rotown, J.R. O'Neill from Rotown, Honourable E. Leopold Smith from Rotown, Henry W. Smith from Carrot Bay, Edwy Flax from Virgin Gorda Valley, Caris Penn from East End, Cecil Reimer from Virgin Gorda Sound, and Benjamin A. Romney from West End. This was one of the most important committees in the territory's history, and agreeing to serve left individuals open to criticisms by the naysayers of the day. One individual who was asked flatly denied, stating that the Lord had called him out of the world and that he was about his father's business and he wasn't going back. After serving on the committee, one of the members informed the commissioner that the people in his community had a meeting expressing their dislike for him and stating that he could no longer represent their interests. The committee's first meeting was on Tuesday, 14 February, 10 a.m. at the library in Rotown. They reviewed and deliberated on the Montserrat Constitution, 1936, which was given to them as a model to work from. After much deliberation, the committee submitted its report on the 18th of February, 1950, recommending 1. Voter qualifications. They recommended universal adult suffrage, that voters must be British subjects, that there should be a literacy test, and there was a residency requirement in the colony for 12 months prior to registration. And the age was 21 and above. Candidate qualification, which was similar to the voter qualification, also included an annual income of £100, property ownership of worth £250, and age 21 and over. They recommended a single electoral district with 4 candidates to be returned. The committee noted, "We have no doubt that the proposed constitution will meet with some measure of public approbation as a first step towards the realization of a better and more democratic form of government for the people of the presidency." The legal foundation was laid, and the Legislative Council was in sight for the first time in many decades in the Virgin Islands. The task of moving the process forward was the responsibility of McWellin Todman, who was recently appointed administrative assistant to the commissioner. Mr. Todman, a 26-year-old Virgin Islander who previously served as head teacher of the Rotown Primary School, was appointed to his new post on the 1st of September, 1949. He was appointed registering officer and then served as the presidency's first returning officer. The first order of business was the establishment of a voters list. And to this end, Mr. Todman appointed a team of assistant registering officers. Edwin Flax in Virgin Gorda Valley, Ira W. Ham in Virgin Gorda Sound, Willard Whitley in East End, Phyllis Pickering, we know her as Phyllis Shirley, in Rotown, Miss R. A. Kell in Anegada, and Leopold Shinnery on Jos Van Dyke. There were other individuals whose names did not appear in the original document on file, who Mr. Todman co-opted to assist in the process around Tortola. Registration was carried out on the 18th, 21st, 25th, and 28th of August in different locations. One officer reported that he had great difficulty convincing residents to register because they felt that they should first know the ins and outs of all the men who wanted to be elected. Another officer stated that he tramped for 2 days from house to house, explaining the process of registration and convincing residents to register. Some of the objections put forward by residents were that there was plenty of time, there was no hurry. Some person said, well, they didn't have the 25 cents, which they heard they needed to pay if they wanted to register. Others wanted to know, they were sure that it was not in the Bible, and God did not allow it. The new constitution was, in their view, disappointing. And some people felt that they had already registered with a political party. Others felt it was a complete waste of time. When the registration process was completed and a voter list compiled on the 6th of September 1950, out of a potential 2,000 to 2,007 eligible voters in the presidency, only 1,267 voters were recorded, 19% of the population. In all things considered, from an official perspective, the result was regarded as good. Mr. Todman was commended for his efforts and interaction with the country folks, explaining why the registration and the election was important. Nomination day was 18th October, and a total of 9 candidates were registered. Charles Brunel Bruce, a farmer from Peter Island; Stanford Connor, a shopkeeper in Rowtown; Carlton de Castro, assistant shopkeeper in Rowtown; Theodore Faulkner, a fisherman from Anegada; I.G. Fonseca, a shopkeeper in Rowtown; Achille Washington Fraser, a carpenter in Rowtown; Jonathan Hendricks, a farmer / carpenter from Jahphix; Antonio Maduro, a farmer / carpenter from Bargus Bay; and Howard Reynald Penn, a shopkeeper from Rowtown. Interestingly, among the registered voters who appeared as sponsors for the candidates were 3 women: Lillian A. Pickering, Mary Malone, and Muriel Donovan. The election campaign was well underway, and polling day was set for November 20th, 1950. Assistant returning officers were appointed and polling stations identified. Ira Smith in Anegada, polling station, the clinic; Edwy Flax in Virgin Gorda Valley, polling station, the clinic; Carrie Spen in East End, the polling station at the schoolhouse; Phyllis Pickering in Rowtown, polling station at the administration's office; Stanley Nibbs in Seacows Bay, the polling station at the schoolhouse; Benjamin A. Romney in West End, polling station at the schoolhouse; Wilfred Smith in Carrot Bay, polling station at the schoolhouse; Joseph Smith in Cane Garden Bay, polling station at the schoolhouse; and Raymond Penn on Jocelyn Dyke, polling station at the clinic. On November 4th, Evan Henley, captain of the sloop Messenger, was dispatched from Tortola to Antigua, to collect the ballot papers for election day, as they were printed in the government pantry. On November 21st, the day after the historic election in the Virgin Islands, all of the ballot boxes were returned to Rowtown and the ballots counted and these are the following results. I, Glanville Fonseca, 629. Raymond Reynald Penn, 462. Carlton de Castro, 402. Charles Bonell Bruce, 359. Those 4 persons were declared the winner. And the other candidates, Achille Washington Fraser, garnered 295 votes. Antonio Maduro, 222. Theodore Faulkner, 210. And Jonathan Hendricks, 93. Today, we owe a debt of gratitude to the 853 men and women who dared a new thing and participated in choosing their leaders with the hopes that they were contributing to the ushering in of a new day in the Virgin Islands. These were the unsung heroes. In Anegada, there were 71 persons who cast their ballot. In Virgin Gorda, 46. In Eastern, 106. In Rotown, 380. In Seacoast Bay, 60. West End, 55. Carrot Bay, 67. Cane Garden Bay, 47. Jocelyn Dyke, 21. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, these were the activities that took place in 1950 after the Great Demonstration and the lead up to the restoration of the Legislative Council. Thank you.
We know that where you choose to bank matters, and it is your vote on what your funds do in strengthening our community. As your official Bank of Paradise, we invest and support the lifeblood of our economy by helping in the realization of personal goals for homeownership, education, and entrepreneurial visions, which support small businesses. We make it our place to connect with persons and worthy causes, and we have been doing so for more than 30 years. Where your money goes and what your dollars empower are your choice. And we thank you for choosing us, a bank that gives where it matters the most, for you, for our community, and a happier tomorrow. The National Bank of the Virgin Islands.